Hello and a very warm welcome to you. This is another very educative and informative episode of your #1 legal talk show, The Courthouse. It's all about the law, it's all about legal jargons, legal information, and I like to call it our Law Classroom 101. I am Itohan Olomu-Agbodo. We'll return with more after this break. You're welcome back. Well, if you just joined us, this is the Courthouse, and it's all about the law. And this week, we are taking a look at the Gunshot Act. It's an act in Nigeria that provides for compulsory treatment of victims of gunshots. And this act was passed in 2017. It became a law, but every day we see here of hospitals rejecting gunshot victims, accident victims, and asking them to go for police reports and things like that. And it's something that has led to the loss of many lives. So that is why we are taking a look at this issue. And we are joined by a seasoned legal practitioner. It's Chibuzor Aguocha. It's a legal practitioner based in Nigeria, and he'll be shedding light on this topic. You're welcome to the Courthouse, sir.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So the Gunshot, Compulsory Treatment of Gunshot Victims Act. Give us a background, sir.
Yes, let me give you the background to that act. You see, over the time, there evolved this practice, which has no basis in law, that before a hospital could attend to a gunshot victim, the doctor must first get a police clearance and approval before proceeding to embark on such treatment. And as a result, many people have died. Doctors shy away from taking on such treatments because of the harshness and the rigors of obtaining such police report. And in the process, human lives are lost unnecessarily. And no responsible country or government can fold its arms and watch this state of affairs continuing. Now, for perspective, I would like to say that that practice has no basis, either in the Robbery Act or in the Police Act. And in fact, it runs counter to the oaths which the doctors swore upon induction as medical practitioners. That is the Hippocratic Oath, which is that the first primary duty of a doctor is to save life. Now you have somebody at the throes of death. You are saying you cannot treat the person because you need to get police clearance. So such a thing could not have been going on and on. And good enough, the government arose to its duties and responsibilities by enacting this particular act, the Compulsory Treatment and Care for Victims of Gunshot Act 2017. What that act sought to address was this bottleneck that characterized victims of gunshot. And we know that anybody can be a victim of gunshot. Yes. And it is needless to keep losing lives in that regard. Firstly, our Constitution in Chapter 2, that is fundamental objectives and directive principles of state policy, says that the primary duty of government is to secure life and property. Now, of the citizens, securing of life and property is not limited to getting soldiers, policemen, and or what have you, to patrol or to man security hot spots. It's not. To secure life means what you do when a life is in danger of departing this physical realm is part of security of life. That means adequate facility for treatment, adequate procedure to enhance speedy treatment of such a person to save that life. That encompasses security of life and property. If this is not in place, then you are not living to that duty, function.
Yes.
Now, secondly, the Constitution in Chapter 4, Fundamental Rights, the first right recognized under that law is right to life, that everybody is entitled to life. Nobody can be denied that life except in accordance with the law. So it behoves on the government and the citizens alike to have a synergy, to have the framework to effectively actualize the vision of the framers of the Constitution, which is to preserve and secure life. Now, coming to this act, after promulgation, it is sad to note that a combination of ignorance and fear have made this act somewhat ineffective.
Ineffective or redundant.
Because up till now, you will find doctors still rejecting gunshot victims, which is very, 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 very unethical and unlawful. We remember the recent case of the young chap, the youth copper, Olomu-Precious, who was a victim of a gunshot. Several hospitals rejected him, assuming, even though this cannot bring him back to life, assuming these hospitals were alive today, we are conscious of the duty
that they had
under this act. At least give the young man a chance of survival. Imagine a victim of a gunshot, bleeding, in pains. Now he's rushed to the hospital, and the doctor says, look, I'm sorry, medical clearance. And you watch the patient, the victim, bleed to death. It's inhuman.
It's inhuman, and like you said, like you rightly mentioned, it's quite painful because there's already an act, there's a law that actually states that these doctors, these hospitals should give treatment to the victims of gunshot wounds. At least my own, it has come up in discussion several times. I haven't believed that. If you feel the person is a suspect or is probably a criminal, why don't you treat the person and get the police immediately to come to your hospital?
That's what I said. I mentioned the Hippocratic oath.
Yes,
you swore to save life.
And save lives.
And you see, why it's unfortunate is that I said ignorance and timidity and fear have crept in. That is why it is good for our laws, such as this, to be given adequate publicity so that everybody gets to know. And let's even look at it this way. The most precious thing any human being has is life. That was why when God created man, the last thing he did was to breathe life into that person. So that's why even the law says you can even kill in defense and protection of your life. To tell you the pedestal upon which the law places on life. Now, this act, for all intents and purposes, is beautiful, even though I have some little questions as to certain provisions. Now, it says every hospital is now under a duty and obligation of law to treat a victim of gunshot without asking for even deposit or money, as you say, it's an emergency deposit money. Then seeking police clearance before proceeding. So the objective is treat the person first. Because if you look at it, our minds go to the negative, that maybe the person went into robbery or one crime. But millions of people every day are victims of this robbery. And in the process, receive bullet wounds. So why don't you first preserve that life? Then you now start making inquiries. How did you come about this injury? Which can easily be verified, and corroborated or reported, as the case may be. Now, after, let's assume the treatment has commenced. We are still according with the act. The hospital is given 2 hours within which to inform the police authorities that there is a gunshot victim, which in my opinion is too stringent and too short a time. Because take an instance where a hospital, on a typical day, a gunshot victim comes, there is only a nurse and a doctor. And it's such a critical nature that they have to spend time, hours, to stabilize that person. 2 hours is not sufficient. I would have said, the law could have said, at the least possible convenience of the hospital, make that report so that it will be on record. After all, what are you trying to avoid? Is it not treating?
I think I wouldn't have too much of an issue with that one if there's an enforcement of the first thing, the first duty of informing the public and saying doctors must save lives first and not to ask for deposits, emergency deposits, or to ask for police reports. They should let this, there should be a way to inform the public. At least that's what we are doing here. That's what we're trying to do, to help the public to know that there's actually a law. Because in 2017, when the Act came into being, we treated the topic, we looked at it. But a lot of people, the case of Precious, for instance, happened just last year during a protest. And that person, he had a valid identity card. And of course, the people that took him there were citizens that had means of identifying themselves, but hospitals rejected them. I think, like you said, it's fear. So is it an unfounded fear?
No, it's founded. That is where a lot of education and training, enlightenment, needs to be given to the police authorities. Because what induces the fear? It is the reaction of the police when such an information gets to them. In fact, if you're not careful, you become, you are roped in. That, you've been treating armed robbers or criminals. So nobody wants to go through that stress. But the Act even goes further. It is not only the hospitals that have been given a duty. Yes. Individuals have been given a duty. Yes, have been given a duty. Because it needs to be told that we should be our brother's keeper. The Supreme Court, in the case of Fawemi and Akilu, where Oputa JSC said, Kayadesho, JSC officer memory said, everybody is his brother's keeper in Nigeria. That was a pronouncement coming from the Supreme Court. That means, as a citizen, when you see anybody at the peril of death and is helpless, you are obliged
to do something to help.
Legally or morally. You see, it mirrors the status we give to life in the country. If you see other advanced countries, at the slightest incident, people are calling 911, calling ambulance. Okay. See, because everybody looks out for each other. So it's obligatory. We don't even need a law to compel us to help victims ordinarily. But now, because we are not alive to responsibility, there's a law. Okay. It didn't start today. It didn't start today. Look at the Bible. Yes. Look at the Samaritan.
Okay, I know that we have examples, a plethora of examples to actually give, but I want to take a listen to our report on this issue, the compulsory treatment of victims of gunshots. There's an act in place, and of course the act says that doctors must immediately, they see those victims, attend to them, and the hospital is not supposed to ask for initial deposits. It's been happening, but it has to stop. So we'll take a listen to our reports and we'll take a look at our legal nuggets. We'll be right back. Important highlights of the Compulsory Treatment and Care for Victims of Gunshots Act 2017. Every hospital is to receive and treat gunshots of bullet wound victims without police clearance, even without the payment of an initial deposit. But the hospital has the duty to report to the nearest police station within 2 hours of commencing treatment on the victim. Every volunteer or person who assists or helps a gunshot or bullet wound victim should not be subjected to embarrassing interrogation or harassment in their genuine bid to assist the victims. Any authority or persons, inclusive of the police, who by standing by or an omission in doing his bit results in the unnecessary death of a gunshot victim shall be liable to imprisonment for 5 years or a fine. No person with a gunshot wound shall be subjected to torture or any inhuman or degrading treatment by any person or authority, including the police or any security agency, until the person with the gunshot wound is certified okay and no longer in need of Medicare by the chief medical director of the hospital where he is receiving treatment. The police may not receive or collect such a person. The hospital who receives a gunshot victim has the duty of contacting the victim's family within 24 hours of confirming the victim's identity. The High Court shall order a person convicted under the Act, in addition to other penalties, to pay damages to the victims as restitution for injuries or loss sustained. Every hospital shall keep adequate record of the treatment of bullet wound victims. Any person who commits an offense under this act, especially when the offense does not lead to death of victim but led to substantial physical, mental, emotional, and psychological damage, shall be liable on conviction to imprisonment for a term of not more than 15 years and not less than 5 years, without the option of a fine. You're welcome back. If you just joined us, this is the courthouse, and we are addressing issues that have to do with victims of gunshot wounds and the act that provides for compulsory treatment of these victims. And we still have Chibuzor Aguocha, a legal practitioner, who's been telling us about the provisions of the act and giving us some examples. You were talking about the fact that even the Bible makes provision for helping your neighbors. You gave us a story of the Samaritan. Yes. Oh, I cut you short anyway. Yes, but let me ask you about the remedies available in situations like this, where someone like a Precious has lost his life due to, should we say it's negligence? How do we describe it? And who do we hold accountable for the loss of such a valuable life, precious life like that?
It's a combination of negligence, wickedness, and ignorance. Okay. Because at the point where Precious was bleeding from those gunshot wounds, any person, a normal person who has a heart should say, whatever the consequences is, let me save this young man first. You know. But where they shied away, the act makes it both criminal and civil. Look at the criminal aspect. It gives a term of imprisonment, 5 to 15 years, to anybody or the hospital who was in a position
to render help
and omitted or neglected to render help. That is criminal negligence. And for which the penalty is 5 years or 15 years, as the case might be, with or without option of fine. Now, having established that, well, dead men don't claim rights. The survivors or heirs of that person can file an action for negligence and damages for that unwanted loss of life. But where the person survives, he has the locus, the right to institute an action or lay a criminal complaint against such persons. For that of the hospital, it is easy and ascertainable. But for a bystander on the road, how do you get him? We see so many times, you see somebody lying somewhere, people just come, take the other way, and say, I don't want a problem. They will go away. So that aspect of enforceability with regards to bystanders is a bit difficult and blood.
Yes, because you may not know who was
who
there
was
at
there
that
at the time.
But at least you can hold the hospital.
The hospital.
What about the police?
Yes, of course. The police will come in where there is a willful obstruction of that treatment
By the police.
by the police.
Okay, let me give you...
Even in, the act says even the police should not forcefully or torture or degrade any person who is a victim of gunshot and cannot take him away unless there's a certification by the doctor teaching the person to say that, okay, the person is now fit and proper,
to go.
To go.
So now there's this case in Point, another case that happened not so long ago. The DPO of the police station actually accompanied the victim to the hospital, and the hospital was even still demanding for deposits, was demanding for money. When, okay, now the DPO of the police station is with the victim and saying, you treat this victim. This person is not a criminal. This person was a victim of an armed robbery attack. Treat this person. The DPO was standing there, the police officer was standing there. The hospital was refusing to give treatment because of money. What happens in that case?
They fall under this liability.
So the family of that victim can sue.
Even the bonus sue that the police can still charge.
In criminal
criminal prosecution.
Okay.
Because it runs contrary to the act.
Okay.
And ignorance of the law is not an excuse.
Yes. Okay, very, very interesting, sir. Do you have any last words on this topic? I know we have press.
Yeah. It's very, very, we should value life.
Yes.
Life is the most precious gift God has given to us as human beings. Anybody can be a victim. So we should spare no effort, materially, physically, morally, or financially, to assist anybody who is a victim of gunshots. Okay, because who knows? We hear of accidental discharge.
Protests occur and people get injured.
So we should give life the sanctity it deserves.
Okay, very, very interesting. That's Aguocha telling us that life is very important, and that is why it is also a very, very fundamental right. The Constitution protects the right of every citizen. You have the right to life, and your neighbor also have the right to life. So our speaker has also advised us to be our neighbor's keeper. Don't see a victim and walk past and say, oh no, I'll get in trouble. Help the victim first, and the law will protect you. That is why we are here. That's why we are giving you this information. But before we go, I informed you before we started that we have another segment. We just need one Latin maxim from you. You actually use one, locus, without knowing that you used it.
No, my favorite Latin, they are twins.
Okay.
That is, first is Nemo Judes in Kosaswa, meaning you can't be a judge in your own case. And Audi Autorin Patem, meaning here the other side. Why is dear to me is because that is the twin pillar upon which justice is founded upon. And it dates back to the Bible. When Adam transgressed, God saw him, knew what he had done, but gave him the opportunity to fair hearing, to express himself. He said, Adam, where art thou? Okay. Adam said, I heard your voice, I was naked. So who told you you were naked? So God was giving Adam a fair hearing, an opportunity to explain what he has done.
Just Latin. I know you're going to give us more examples. Thank you so much. And you get to find out more Latin maxims in our Bible segment. Of course, he gave us two, so I'm relying on those two. More Latin maxims for you. You're welcome back, but it is actually time for us to go. At this point, we want to say a very big thank you to you, Chibuzor Aguocha, Esquire, for being here on the show this week. We appreciate you, sir.
Thank you very much.
I would like to see you some other time.
It's my pleasure.
Well, you can join the conversation by using our hashtag The Courthouse, hashtag Lover Plus. You can also download our app, Lover Plus, on any of the mobile app stores. And we'd like you to check our website on www.loverplus.tv. Send your emails to info@loverplus.org and comments to number showing on your screen now. I am Olomu-Agbodo. I say, don't just get mad, go get a lawyer.